Why, hello there, listeners. You've come back. Do you know what? I knew you would. So here we are again with the lovely Lorraine Mace. She is our special guest again, talking about one of her books and the true crime case that inspired it. Lorraine, are you there?
I am. Hello.
No, I promise we did let her out at some point.
They didn't. They kept me in a cage, and after this, They've promised that I can go free after this one.
Lisa, help me out. We
Just
let her
don't
out.
mention any more of your books, Lorraine. If you tell us you've got more interesting rabbit holes you've been down, we'll keep you here.
Okay, I'll keep quiet.
And of course, as always, I have Lisa Shepherd with me. Lisa,
I'm here.
you
I'm not
you are
caged.
here.
I'm chained down
You're
here
chained down here.
forevermore. No, of course I'm back down the red rabbit hole. I'm excited. I'm really excited to talk to you again, Lorraine, about another of your books.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Just to remind you guys, Lorraine Mace is a best-selling author. She lives in Spain.
Yeah.
And she's had 7 thrillers and some children's books as well. Some youth adult, is it, Lorraine?
It's sort of, middle grade, but
Middle
upper
grade
middle
fantasy.
grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was on last time talking about Pins and Needles, her book Pins and Needles, and how the Harold Shipman case inspired that. And while we were talking about that one, another one of her books came up, and we were like, oh my, we need to talk about this. This needs to be a whole new show. So Lorraine, tell us what the book is and the case that inspired it.
The book is called Rockabye Baby, and the case that inspired it was the disappearance of Madelaine McCann. It's quite a deep one. I think most people can remember where they were when they heard that the child had gone missing. And the idea for my book initially was based on the disappearance of a single child. But then I did a lot of research and I discovered that there are, heartbreakingly, children go missing every day, but they never make the news. So although the Madelaine McCann case inspired the idea and the initial research, and there is a missing child that runs through the book that where it's always on the news. The research that I did, I went much deeper into child trafficking.
So I can hear birds where Lorraine is from. I'm envisioning her like a Disney princess covered in birds that are helping her with her rabbit hole research.
Can you really hear the birds?
Yeah, it's lovely.
Well, when we mentioned Spain as well, we both sort of went, and that is because, Lorraine, it's miserable here again today. I think last time we spoke, the weather wasn't too bad, so we were slightly more sprightly and a bit less jealous of you being in Spain. But today, the weather's atrocious again here.
Oh, well, I apologise for that, and I won't tell you how nice the weather is. And
no, it's
believe it
lovely.
or not, I have the windows closed to shut out the outside noise, so the birds must be
They're giving it
quite
some,
loud.
aren't they? Yeah, that's fine. So tell us about the plot of Rockabye Baby. Well, what you can, obviously, no spoilers or anything.
Well, the plot of the book is that a child has gone missing. My detective isn't involved in that case. He is involved in other cases, not realizing that the cases are that interact. And without sort of giving too much away, I delve quite a lot into the reason that children are trafficked for the sex trade. And one of the evil characters, and you meet him very early in the book, so I'm not giving too much away, is a paedophile. And he has, if you like, children on call. There's actually a business where he is being supplied with children by demand. He will say, I want a 7-year-old who is blonde, and so on. And it happens, which I didn't realise until I started doing the research for the book that I thought I was going to write, which was based on the disappearance of Madelaine McCann.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the theories, isn't it? Kind of put forward about what happened to Madeleine McCann, that there was a suggestion of some sort of to order requirement that meant that somebody went and sort of tracked her down and took her.
Yes, absolutely.
I've heard that as one of the theories. Yeah.
But that, at the time that I started doing the research, I didn't realise that, that was going to be one of the theories. One of the things that I did discover, which is really quite heartbreaking, is that only certain children make it onto the news. And it appears, and I hope I'm not going to offend anybody, but I probably will. It appears as if they have to be white, they have to be female, they have to be pretty, and they have to come from a reasonably good home. There is one part in the book which I based on an actual conversation that I had with some Romani gypsies who were encamped not far from where I was living at the time. The anger from the elder, if you like, of the people, I put in the book, because his attitude was, well, if it was one of ours, who would care? Nobody ever does anything. And I looked into that, and unfortunately, as I said, there are children who go missing every day in the United Kingdom, and it never makes the press. So I put some of that outrage into my book.
Yeah, I think that's justifiable, and partly it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you've got the media who want pretty
Yes.
pictures, but also you've got the public that respond to pretty pictures. So it's kind of, the media are really just giving the public what they want, but the public are being led by the media. So it's
Bit of a vicious circle, isn't it, really? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. The media want clickbait, and and a pretty child is exactly what they're. Oh God, I don't mean that's what they're looking for. They're looking for children to go missing. What I mean is, there are certain children who make it into the news, and other children don't, and it annoys. It's like, why does the other child not have a value? It seems that way
It's
sometimes.
not just children as well. It's actually, you compare how some different adult cases are explored as well. Even recently, with and the name, I've lost her name again, but the case of the blonde lady who was taken by the police officer and murdered. There was a another woman who was out, I think, just either jogging along the canal and was attacked. But we saw the one case very heavily, and we saw a lot about that. That's it,
Sarah
yeah,
Everard.
Sarah Everard, understandably so. And it's nothing against either of, these both these cases are awful, but one was publicized very heavily and in the news, and the other almost disappeared under the radar. And if you compare the profiles of those two women, there are a couple of differences that you can see, that are things that perhaps the media chose not to explore. And I suppose the other thing with the Madeleine McCann case, in that way, I think it was the circle kind of relaxation that comes. You're in your holiday frame of mind. You think, oh, it's okay. We can be in this restaurant. It's 150 meters away. They're asleep. We can sort of see them from the restaurant, but it's okay. We're on holiday. We've done this all week. It's been fine.
They had a system, didn't they? They were like every 15 minutes someone would check on all the kids. So whatever did happen happened quite quickly. So, and I always think that when it comes to abductions, especially small children that can be carried, it's much harder to abduct a full grown person that you have to try and maintain, I suppose, a physical presence over. Whereas a sleeping child, especially, Lisa, and, Lorraine, if you've got kids, you can pick them up and move them around, and they're still asleep, aren't they? They're still.
Exactly. They don't necessarily wake up.
So it's much easier to grab a child that small and still keep them reasonably docile.
Well, there was a report that a man was seen carrying what could have been a child wrapped in a blanket.
There was like bare feet poking out or something. I saw that same thing that they wondered about, and it was around the right kind of time. But then again, that could be just a dad
Yeah.
Exactly.
carrying their child back.
The only thing that we know for certain is that the child disappeared. That's all we know for absolute certain.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and there are lots of theories
Mm.
about what could have happened, but yeah, yeah, at the heart of it, she and one of the going back to the media thing as well, one of the most publicized cases, quite well known as one of the most known disappearance in the world, really. Now, international.
I mean, again, talking about double-edged swords. I mean, as the McCanns, they're going to want as much publicity as humanly possible, because the more publicity they get, then obviously the more likely perhaps someone is to see her or recognize her if she is still out there, you know, or perhaps scare the person that has her into giving her up, which is one thing. But also being in the public eye like that after losing their child.
That must have been that must have been awful. And also, if you think about it now, the twins growing up, that must
Yeah.
that because what are we talking about? God, how many years is it
I
now?
think she would have just turned 20. Yeah, so I think it's 17 years now.
So the twins would be 18, 19 now.
Yeah, and they can't tell them, they can't give them an answer. What happened to our sister? We don't know. Yeah, and with all that media coverage, you've then got the things like Julia Wendell, and there's somebody else as well who think they are Madeleine McCann, who emerge. You know, I think she's 21, wasn't she? But she said she
Yes,
didn't know about her age and whether that was accurate, and quite a vulnerable young woman who really had kind of convinced herself that she may well be Madeleine McCann, and her DNA, her heritage was entirely Polish, so there was kind of no possibility when it was found out. But it was she was definitely, well, all the armchair detectives. She came to my attention on social media, so I think she definitely kind of got picked up there and publicized and shared, because that's how she started it. I think she set up was it an Instagram account of I am Madeleine McCann, and that was how she got her voice, her story out there. And somebody else as well, I think, again on social media, somebody else suggesting, hang on, I have this same the very distinctive eye.
yes. It's so rare. So you can understand why a young woman of the right age might well believe that, particularly if her antecedents are a bit cloudy. If you are adopted, or you believe you are, if you really believe that your family is not your family, and you've got that eye thing, because of course that's the other theory, isn't it? Children are also handpicked, but for adoption, not necessarily any bad reason, but couples who, mind you, they'd have to be a little bit disturbed to want to take somebody else's child.
I mean, it's called forced adoption, isn't it? Where it's they're doing it deliberately, like stinging. But you know, you can understand the kind of misery of a couple if they've lost a child and they're just not really thinking straight, and all they want is that child back. So it just makes sense to them. And especially if they're looking at a family and saying, well, they have more children than they need. You see 7 children like dwarves getting paraded in front of you, and you think, well, they don't need 7 children.
Why has nobody gone for that 21 kids and counting family
Yeah.
then? They've got loads.
I can understand a spur of the moment snatching a child, but not a premeditated cataloguing exactly what I'm looking for, which is what happens a lot with children who are abducted.
You got to be rich. You got to be
Mm.
rich, because that's a hard thing to do. You know, that we're looking at maybe a 15-minute, 10-minute gap. They, whoever came in, grabbed her and left. And that, as a spur of the moment thing, an opportunistic kind of fits, but to have planned it and then to be able to transport that child.
It was planned.
Oh, you think it was planned? Tell us, Lorraine.
Well, I do think it was planned. If you think about the time scale, you said those children were checked every 15 minutes. But that must have been a regular thing. So whoever took, if she was taken, this is just my supposition now, whoever took her was waiting for the right moment. It wasn't a, oh look, there's a child, let me pick her up and run away with her. You know, when you hear about babies being taken, it's very often the baby is snatched from the pram. The mother looks away, the baby's gone.
Yeah.
But this wasn't that. This was a case where the child was in bed asleep. So whoever did it had to either go in through the door or in through the window, had to pick up the child without waking her, carry her out either through the door or through the window, and get away to a vehicle that must have been waiting. It was planned. It had to have been planned. It couldn't possibly. The only other alternative is that it was a spur of the moment thing and she was taken into one of the other apartments.
Yeah.
But the police did a search.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how quickly did they do a search? That's the, was it immediately? Was the hotel staff searching all the rooms? And also, see, you don't know how quick the Portugal kind of authorities kind of jump on something like that.
I think the crime scene kind of got trampled as well, didn't it? Because they had lots of people going straight in, and going back to your theory, Lorraine, in the restaurant, they had a note in the book about the family having to have that table. The those who later were kind of known as the Tapas Seven, the adults on the holiday, they had requested a particular table, and it was written in the book that they had to have that table because they were looking across and the children were unattended in the apartments.
Mm.
So anyone could have seen that in the books. I think it wasn't a regular thing that they would book out a particular table for a family for an entire week. But there was a note, and I'm sure the McCann suggested that perhaps whoever had done it had seen that note, and they could have been watching. They easily could have been watching, watching when they go and when they come back.
If it was every 15 minutes, as they say, then you know after whoever has been in to check, you've got, let's say, 10 clear minutes in which to get in and get out. So it's not a spur of the moment thing. You've got to have been watching and waiting for the right moment.
She wasn't taken on the first night, was she? No.
No.
So there was probably other times where someone could have just looked at the pattern.
I was going to say, I don't know how accurate this is because this is again something I heard elsewhere, but I thought it was every 30 minutes. And actually, I was always under the impression that one of the adults went over and looked at all of the children, went and
Yeah.
checked on every single child.
Oh,
But actually, according to this other podcast that I listened to, that wasn't the case. So they were just going and checking on their own every half an hour. And then it just so happened that the last person who went over and checked, who wasn't either of the McCann parents, was somebody else. The last one who went and checked, his children happened to be in the apartment next door. So that's why he said, oh, I'll check on yours while I'm there. But actually, because I suppose they didn't necessarily all have apartments. So for somebody to go, walk over, and then actually go and visit every single apartment with all the children would have been, I suppose, a bit of a something to, and in terms of getting into the rooms as well, they'd have to leave them all unlocked if they want somebody to go, or somebody'd have to go with all the key cards or whatever and get into all the apartments, wouldn't they?
I think with this case being so popular and all the kind of conjecture and theories and that, I mean, what I heard was that it was every 15 minutes they did dip their heads into all the rooms, and that the last person was Kate McCann, who discovered that Madeleine was missing. And to me, I'm just thinking, did they have I'd have been asking them, did you have a kind of set pattern there that someone could have, you know, or what because only by learning that can you learn how planned, like Lorraine said, how planned it actually was.
well, I just want to bring in one comment on the Portuguese investigation. As a crime writer, I do tend to look a lot at the way the police
Mm.
operate. And I just felt it was initially a very sloppy investigation. One thing that I saw on the news, and I was just thinking, but this is crazy. To use sniffer dogs to try and find Madeleine, you would give that dog something that she used all the time. And the thing that she used all the time was the soft toy. But every time I saw Madelaine McCann walking anywhere, she was holding the soft toy. Why did the police not take it immediately and say, we are going to use that to see if we can track the child? Why didn't they take it away from her?
Yeah, Kate McCann's holding it in the pictures,
Mm,
isn't she?
always.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Well, I mean, the thing with sniffer dogs and dogs generally, I love dogs. Dogs are my favorite animal by a
Mine
country
too.
mile.
Blech, I'm a
But
Oh,
cat person.
really?
yeah,
Oh no!
Oh.
I'm the odd one out.
you're the odd one out. But for all the will in the world, dogs are not infallible. And I actually had, when I was I say very young, I was just out of school. I went on like a careers day with the dog unit in
Right.
Northamptonshire,
Oh, that's a great
and
I
careers
would have loved
day.
that.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really wanted to do something like that, but then upon like spending the day with them, realized there was a lot of exercise that I was just really not in the mood for. But I love the dogs, even though you're not really meant to play with them. I did, and but the kind of information they were giving me was very much a dog's only good on the day. They're not infallible, and the kind of sniffing an item and then trying to find someone really doesn't work. And that's bandied about in a lot of like TV shows and things like that. A lot of the time they're sniffing for something that's out of the ordinary.
Right.
So like blood, they're sniffing for blood, they're sniffing for drugs, for example. And I can't imagine that the Portugal, I mean, for me as a crime writer, I actually want the police out of my story as quick as humanly possible, because all they do is they just kind of introduce an element that I don't want to have to fall down a rabbit hole of research to mess
They're a
about with.
nuisance, aren't
So
they?
I want my they are, and not in real life, obviously. They're lovely in real life, and you want them around if something happens in real life. But in my books, I want them away from my protagonist, and so they can get on with the investigation. They can figure stuff out on their own. And with these particular Portuguese police, again, this is just my opinion. I think their kind of investigation was the best that they could do, because you can imagine that as a holiday resort, the biggest crime they've probably solved that year was a bag snatch. So they probably weren't geared up for child abduction. I don't think the dogs were probably geared up for that kind of work either. They might have been drug sniffing dogs for all we know, that they tried to just kind of manhandle into a separate kind of profession for them.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And people put a lot of
Bowser, you're coming today. You're pretty good at sniffing things out, aren't you? You've got, you know what cadavers are? You
yeah,
sniff cadavers, and yeah, bring him in. He'll
put
do.
put down that bag of cocaine and get in the
Yeah.
van. I can't imagine that they were trained for this kind of thing, which obviously didn't help
No,
anybody in the
no.
long run.
I don't know though. I think holiday and holiday resorts, definitely, I think a lot of theft.
I think a lot of theft. They might
Massively.
have had a few missing kids in terms of like getting lost and wandering
Hmm.
off, but that might be the problem is once you get something on a regular basis. So perhaps they've had a couple of lost children, but they turned up within a couple of minutes, or
Yeah,
and it was very
yeah.
easy to find them down the beach, or wherever they were going to be. So they might have been lulled into a kind of false sense of safety, I guess, in terms of what was going on. They perhaps thought she woke up and had wandered off to find her parents, and that they'd find her just in her pajamas in the resort. But of course, that just didn't happen. Bringing a very long point I've made all the way around is dogs are not infallible by any stretch, as much as I love them. So you can't put a lot of onus on any evidence in inverted commas that are brought to you by sniffer
I
dogs.
agree. I agree that they wouldn't necessarily have done anything or been able to do anything. I still just felt it was weird that the
Mm.
thing that the child treasured the most wasn't used, at least tried to use it. Even if it didn't work, at least try to use it.
But again, also, I mean, again, it's like a catch-22, isn't it? It's whether you think that, I mean, maybe she didn't want to, if it's the only thing left of your child, maybe you don't want to give that up to dogs. You don't want to, but then again, to find them, I don't know. It's a
Mm.
difficult scenario.
I think you've got to weigh up. Do you want to, now this is me as a mother, would I want to hang on to something that I knew my child loved because it was that connection? Or would I want to use that just in case, even if it's a long shot, you know, a 1,000,000 to 1 chance. I, as a mother, this is just me now. I think I would say, take it.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been washed on a regular basis. So perhaps clothing, sweating and kind of skin and things on clothing that's just been worn would perhaps be a better sample anyway than something that's been washed a couple of times.
The other thing about the Portuguese police, or the PJ as they're also known, is that they didn't really want to work very well with the Leicestershire Constabulary. Easy for me to say that,
Constabulary.
isn't it? Thank you for that. That they didn't really want to work with them, and then they didn't really want to work with Scotland Yard when they launched their investigation, didn't they? Operation Grange, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
They felt they'd done the job, that they felt that they had done whatever could be done, and anybody else coming in was either going to muddy the waters or just go over old ground.
Is that quite a common thing for writers to kind of look at? Do you ever look, particularly if you're writing about kind of police, some of your protagonists are in the police, do you ever sort of look at things like disagreements not being able to work well with others?
It's not something I've come up against, but obviously you have.
Yeah, I like a lot of conflict. And I think that with people's personalities generally, I mean, I don't care if they're in the police, they're in the NHS, they're in the hospitals, they're everywhere. You're going to get people that will rub each other up the wrong way.
Oh
And
yeah, that for sure.
unfortunately, yeah, you've got human beings that, I know that sometimes I can hold a grudge and it's stupid and you don't want to do it, but I'll still do it. you know, but it's whether you've got that personality that can put that grudge aside for the greater good, isn't it? And some people do and some people can't.
Well, certainly in my books, within the team, I'm talking about the D.I. Sterling books now, within the team, there are always conflicts. You know, you've got those who believe they should have got a promotion and didn't, those who really don't like the person who did get the promotion or whatever, those who think they know everything and very often don't. And that, as you say, that makes great conflict. But I haven't had a situation where, for example, in the Rockabye Baby book, my detectives are actually working with the Hull police, and they're working quite nicely. I didn't bring in any conflict there, but I suppose I could have done.
Was it international, Lorraine? Was it international, or was it?
I can't tell you because that would spoil the book.
Oh, I nearly got a spoiler.
Well, on that note, we're almost running out of time, and there's been updates about the Madelaine McCann case, and I think that we need to cover that in the next episode. So you up for that, Lorraine?
Oh, definitely, definitely. No, I'll just get back in my cage until we think I can come out again.
Here's a crust of bread.
Oh, thank you.
Some water. There you go.
Oh, you're so good. You're so
Keep
good.
me sated for a week.
Well, that's it then, listeners. Join us again to hear about the updates and also maybe even our opinions as to what we think is going on.
Yes.
Ladies?
Oh,
What we think of
yes.
the suspect, yes.
Yeah, what we think of the suspect and what's happening there. Because, I mean, the Madelaine McCann case is huge. I don't see anyone who likes true crime not knowing about it or not having the kind of detail or having heard a billion podcasts and documentaries on it. So that's why we want to bring it into the present and talk about what's happening right now. Do remember to look us up on all the socials. Lisa, where are we?
We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're on TikTok at The Red Rabbit Hole.
Podcast,
indeed, yeah. The Red Rabbit Hole podcast. Or on TikTok, it just says Red Rabbit Hole P.
Okay.
P.
You only get so much time on TikTok, don't you?
Yeah.
Can't say the whole word podcast
you can't
on there.
You can't do long videos. You only get short ones. Yes, but we are there. Come and find us. Follow us.
We are available everywhere you want us to be. Hopefully, if you do find somewhere we're not, then tip us the wink so we can invade there too. Don't forget to follow us. Become a member on Patreon. so you can get early access. So you'll get early access to this next episode and to every next episode. So you're 1 week ahead, and maybe even some bonus material if we ever get around to it. For now, it's goodbye from me.
And from me.
And from me.
See you
And we
soon.
and we didn't even practice that. That was amazing.
What do you mean? Are we supposed to practice?
No. That was good. That was good. That was like a Two Ronnie sketch. Bye, listeners.
See you soon. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
listening.
Bye.
Bye.